In diamond-covered ballroom, millionaire woman marries factory worker, then he shows her pocket secret, the crystal chandeliers of the Metropolitan. Grand ballroom cast rainbow fragments across walls literally embedded with diamonds, each facet catching the light like fallen stars. This wasn't just wealth on display, this was Victoria Ashford's declaration of power. At 34, she commanded a business empire worth $3 billion, her pharmaceutical company revolutionizing treatments across America. Tonight, she was about to shock the very society that had both elevated and constrained her. The guest list read like a who's who of the American elite: senators, tech moguls, oil barons, and Hollywood royalty. They came expecting a spectacle, but none anticipated what Victoria had planned. As guests sipped champagne that cost more than most people's monthly salary, whispers circulated about the groom's mysterious absence from pre-wedding events. Victoria stood in her private preparation suite, her wedding dress a masterpiece of French couture worth more than most homes. Yet her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the diamond tiara that had belonged to 3 generations of Ashford women. Her reflection showed a woman who had everything money could buy, but her eyes betrayed a loneliness that no amount of wealth could fill. The story began 6 months earlier at the most unlikely of places, a late-night diner in Queens. Victoria's Bentley had broken down after a board meeting that ran past midnight. While her driver arranged repairs, she sought refuge in Mel's 24-hour diner, a place where blue-collar workers grabbed coffee between shifts. The contrast couldn't have been starker, her $1,000 heels clicking against cracked linoleum, her designer suit among worn work clothes. That's where she met Marcus Thompson, 31, wiping grease from his hands after a double shift at the automotive parts factory. He didn't recognize her, didn't know her face from magazine covers or business news. To him, she was simply a woman who looked lost, ordering black coffee at 2 a.m. Their conversation started innocently enough, him sharing stories about fixing machinery, her listening with genuine fascination to a world she'd never known. What began as chance encounters became intentional meetings. Victoria found herself returning to that diner, drawn to Marcus's authenticity in a world where every interaction was calculated. He spoke about his dreams, not of wealth, but of purpose. His mother's medical bills consumed most of his paycheck, yet he never complained. He worked weekends at a community center, teaching kids to repair bicycles, finding joy in simple accomplishments. Marcus saw something in Victoria too, though he knew her only as Vicky, a marketing consultant who worked long hours. She never corrected his assumption, treasuring these moments where she wasn't the Ashford heiress, wasn't the pharmaceutical queen, wasn't the woman whose every move made headlines. With Marcus, she was simply human. Their relationship deepened through stolen hours walks through Central Park, where Victoria wore jeans for the first time in years. Visits to museums where Marcus revealed an unexpected appreciation for art. Quiet evenings in his modest Queens apartment, where she helped him research treatment options for his mother's condition. The irony wasn't lost on Victoria that her own company produced medications that could help, yet she couldn't reveal this without destroying the authenticity she cherished. The proposal came during a particularly difficult week. Marcus's mother had taken a turn for the worse, and medical costs were overwhelming him. Victoria watched this strong man break down in his tiny kitchen, apologizing for not being able to afford the treatments that might help. In that moment, she made a decision that would change both their lives forever. She told him everything: her real identity, her wealth, her power. She offered not just her love, but the means to save his mother. Marcus's reaction wasn't what she expected. Rather than gratitude or excitement about sudden wealth, he felt betrayed by the deception. Trust, once broken, proved fragile to repair. Yet love prevailed, and after weeks of difficult conversations, he proposed not with an expensive ring, but with a simple band he'd crafted himself from metal scraps at the factory, transformed into something beautiful through his own hands. now. As wedding bells chimed across Manhattan, Victoria descended the marble staircase into the ballroom. The collective gasp from her guests was audible not at her stunning appearance, but at the man waiting at the altar. Marcus stood uncomfortable in his rented tuxedo, clearly out of place among the opulence, yet maintaining a dignity that impressed. Even Victoria's harshest critics thought the ceremony proceeded with careful choreography. Victoria's father, though disapproving, walked her down the aisle with practiced grace. The minister, one of New York's most prestigious clergy, performed the service with the same solemnity he'd provided for generations of elite families. But underlying the pageantry, attentive observers noticed subtle tensions, hushed conversations. Between Victoria's board members, knowing glances exchanged by family attorneys, and Marcus's obvious discomfort with the theatrical display as the couple exchanged vows, Victoria's voice carried clearly through the ballroom's acoustics. Her words carefully chosen to honor both love and the business relationships watching. Marcus's vows were simpler, more heartfelt, speaking of partnership and shared dreams that resonated differently with various listeners. Some heard genuine emotion. Others detected the ring of someone overwhelmed by circumstances beyond his understanding. Reception that followed showcased Victoria's world in all its complexity. Ice sculptures depicted the couple's story in frozen art, while servers in white gloves presented cuisine from 3-star Michelin chefs. Marcus tried to navigate conversations with titans of industry, his factory experience providing unexpected common ground with some self-made billionaires, while others clearly questioned his place at their table. Yet beneath the celebrations' surface, careful observers might have noticed Marcus's frequent touches to his jacket pocket, a nervous habit that became more pronounced as the evening progressed. Whatever he carried there seemed to weigh heavily on his mind, even as he smiled and danced with his new bride. As midnight approached and guests began departing in their luxury vehicles, Victoria and Marcus finally found themselves alone in the ballroom's fading grandeur. The diamond-embedded walls, which had seemed magical hours before, now felt cold and imposing. It was then, surrounded by the remnants of their fairy tale wedding, that Marcus's expression grew serious, his hand moving once again to that mysterious pocket. The presidential suite of Manhattan's most exclusive hotel represented the pinnacle of luxury, panoramic city views, furnishings worth more than most people's homes, and privacy that money could guarantee. Victoria had spared no expense for their wedding night, yet as she emerged from the marble bathroom in silk and diamonds, she sensed something had fundamentally shifted in Marcus. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, still in his wedding attire but with his bow tie undone, staring out at the city lights below. The man who had seemed overwhelmed but happy during the reception now appeared burdened by some invisible weight. His reflection in the glass showed conflict warring across his features. Victoria approached carefully, her bare feet silent on the Persian carpet. Marriage was supposed to mark a beginning, yet Marcus's demeanor suggested something was ending. When he finally turned to face her, his eyes held a mixture of love and what appeared to be regret, an expression that sent cold fear through her chest. Without speaking, Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small, worn envelope. The paper looked aged, handled frequently, and bore no markings except his name written in feminine handwriting. Victoria recognized neither the script nor the envelope, yet its very existence in his pocket during their wedding felt like a betrayal. The contents proved far more devastating than she could have imagined. Marcus's hands shook slightly as he unfolded several documents, spreading them across the suite's mahogany desk like evidence in a trial. The first was a birth certificate, not his own, but belonging to Alina Thompson, born 8 years ago to Marcus Thompson and Maria Santos. The second was a custody agreement, granting full parental rights to Maria's mother, following Maria's death in a factory accident. The third was a series of legal notices demanding child support payments that Marcus had been unable to meet. But it was the fourth document that destroyed Victoria's world, an investigative report detailing her company's safety violations at the very factory where Maria had died. The accident that had taken Marcus's girlfriend and separated him from his daughter wasn't random misfortune, it was corporate negligence by Ashford Pharmaceutical subsidiary that manufactured chemical components. The report, commissioned by a workers' rights organization, detailed deliberate cost-cutting measures that had made the accident inevitable. Victoria sank into a chair as the implications crashed over her. Marcus hadn't found her by accident in that Queen's diner. He had been following her, researching her, planning their meeting for months. Every moment of their relationship, every confession of love, every shared intimacy, every promise of forever had been built on his desire for justice for Maria and access to his daughter. The man she'd married wasn't seeking revenge in the traditional sense. The documents showed his true plan: to gain enough influence through marriage to force Ashford Pharmaceuticals to take responsibility for Maria's death, provide compensation to affected families, and implement the safety measures that might prevent future tragedies. His love for Victoria, while it had grown genuine over time, had originated from necessity rather than chance. Marcus's voice, when he finally spoke, carried the weight of months of deception. He explained how Maria's death had destroyed his world, how losing access to Elena had driven him to desperation. He had worked double shifts not just to pay his mother's medical bills, but to afford private investigators who could build a case against Victoria's company. When legal channels proved futile against corporate attorneys, he had chosen a more personal approach. The revelation explained so many inconsistencies Victoria had overlooked. Marcus's knowledge of her company's operations despite claiming ignorance about pharmaceuticals, his questions about her business practices that had seemed like innocent curiosity, his resistance to accepting her financial help, which she'd interpreted as pride but now understood as strategic positioning. Yet the cruelest twist was that Marcus's deception had evolved into genuine love. Spending months learning Victoria's routines, studying her public appearances, and researching her background had revealed the loneliness behind her success. The woman he'd planned to manipulate for justice had become someone he genuinely cared about, complicating his original mission beyond recognition. Victoria's response came not as anger, but as something far more devastating: complete emotional shutdown. The woman who had built a business empire through calculated risks and strategic thinking now applied that same cold analysis to her personal life. She reviewed their relationship like a failed acquisition, identifying every moment where she should have recognized the deception. The irony wasn't lost on either of them, that Victoria had the power to fulfill Marcus's original demands. Her company could implement the safety measures, provide the compensation, and even arrange for Marcus to regain custody of Elena. Everything he had schemed to achieve through marriage was within her ability to grant. Yet obtaining it through deception had poisoned any satisfaction such victories might provide. Dawn broke over Manhattan as they sat in silence, the city awakening to a new day while their marriage lay in ruins before it had truly begun. The diamond-covered ballroom where they'd exchanged vows seemed like a fantasy from another lifetime. Though less than 12 hours had passed, Marcus made no excuses for his deception, nor did he beg for forgiveness. Instead, he offered Victoria the only gift he could: complete honesty about his motives, his feelings, and his regrets. He loved her, that had become real, but their foundation remained a lie that no amount of genuine emotion could repair. Victoria faced an impossible choice. She could use her wealth and power to destroy Marcus, ensuring he never saw Elena or achieve justice for Maria. She could also fulfill his demands, proving that love could triumph over deception while setting a precedent that might encourage others to manipulate her through similar schemes. Or she could choose a third path, one that honored both the love that had grown between them and the justice that Maria's memory deserved. As the sun climbed higher over the city, Victoria made her decision. She would not remain married to Marcus' trust. once shattered so completely, could never be rebuilt. But she would not let Maria's death remain unanswered, nor would she allow Elena to grow up without her father. Justice delayed was not justice denied, and sometimes the right thing emerged from the most painful circumstances. The fairy tale that had begun in a diamond-covered ballroom ended in a hotel suite, filled with morning light and broken dreams. Yet from its ashes might rise something more valuable than either wealth or revenge, the possibility that truth, however painful, could still serve both love and justice. Their story would become legend in New York society, not as a romance, but as a reminder that even the most carefully constructed facades eventually crumble, and that sometimes the most profound acts of love require the greatest sacrifices.
Thank you for watching this story unfold with us here on M&A The Story Unfolds. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. We'd love to know where you're watching. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the world you're joining us from. Your support means everything. See you in the next story.